Hi, my name is Julie Wolf, and I am part of ETT510, and we were tasked with coming up with an instructional design plan, and here I am presenting it to you today. Mine is on implementing technology to improve progress monitoring among kindergarten students. So, to kind of give you a background, um, progress monitoring in kindergarten does have its challenges. When some students have experienced school for the first time, are still developing, and are learning about social emotional learning. Most students throughout the school year, especially at the beginning of the school year, see progress monitoring as scary, and they're less confident because they're just beginning to learn letters and numbers. During report cards and assessment windows, progress monitoring is done the traditional way by pulling students to the table one at a time. Using this method, 6 to 8 hours a week of instructional time is being lost to progress monitoring. To combat this problem, I will use technology and student choice to allow them to progress monitor themselves using the Seesaw LMS app. This will free up crucial instructional time, allow me, the teacher, to guide the students throughout the day, and extend their learning. In the end, I will evaluate the impact it has had on the students, their learning, and the time taken out of our instructional day. Finding a solution to this problem has been my mission, and my hope is other kindergarten teachers in our school and district can benefit from purposeful progress monitoring. So, to give you an analysis of our demographics, I teach in Aurora, Illinois, and my school, McCleary, um, is in that town. So Aurora has seen a steady increase in their population growth, which has made it the second largest city in the state of Illinois and is considerably more diverse than neighboring cities. And here are the demographics for Aurora. 41.5% are Hispanic or Latino, and 9.3 are Black or African American. McCleary is in Aurora, Illinois, and has about 571 students. Our minority enrollment is at 93%, and our demographics are below 61% Hispanic Latino, 13% Black or African American, 8.8 Asian or Asian Pacific Islander, 7.4 white, 1.8 that has two or more races, or zero point 0.4 Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. And as I was going through this, these demographics are very identical to the city of Aurora's, and it truly does show our diverse student population that McCleary has and what makes us unique so much. So, our student body is comprised of, in kindergarten, let's look at that first. Kindergarten has 4 classrooms. My classroom is an English speaking classroom. There's another English speaking classroom. We have an ESL classroom, and we have a bilingual. So my classroom is 1 out of 4. Um, just to give you a background of my students in this instructional design plan. Now, the students at McCleary, um, now I will talk about and compare them to the students in Illinois. So 62% of the students at McCleary are low income, and 100% receive free and reduced lunch. McCleary, this school report card was about 2 years ago because of COVID. So 20% of the students at McCleary scored at or above the proficient level for math, and 19% scored at or above that level for reading. And compared to Illinois, 36% of students tested at or above the proficient level for reading, and 31 tested at or above that level for math. So as you can see, McCleary is a little bit under the average amount in Illinois. Now let's look at my students in kindergarten. They love to do hands-on learning. That is based upon our whole day. We have center time throughout all the areas of our day: math, reading, phonics, science. These are all hands on, and it's really purposeful. So, my students love that hands on learning, and we use manipulatives to demonstrate their knowledge. And this is how they interact with things, and I can see them through observational data. And also, my students, they're very curious, and we offer complex ideas, and we want them to have a joy of learning. And this is a foundation of our kindergarten program. Um, we want our centers and our play based centers to offer these three components, and as well as throughout our day. Our students are very active in a positive way. They're still young, they're lively, and always excited, and when they learn new things. And there is a flow to our day. So you will see that my instructional design plan, the intervention I wanted to use, this really disrupted our flow to our day. Progress monitoring has been a negative thing, and I don't want it to disrupt the flow to our day. So that is a really big component. Before I can talk about anything else, I think it's important to understand the history of kindergarten and where our district got their philosophy from. So Frederick Froebel, he invented kindergarten and he founded it. And he founded an early childhood program. And actually, kindergarten translates to garden of children. And that's what it actually means. And so when he founded this program, he um, he had four components that he felt were very important to the curriculum: free self-expression. They had to they had to have creativity, social participation amongst peers and friends, as well as the teachers, and motor expression. So using gross motor or physical touch or fine motor. So he said children are like tiny flowers. They are varied and need care, but each is beautiful alone and glorious when seen in the community of peers. And so from this, he saw that children were active participants. They were discovering, exploring new ideas, where the teacher was facilitating discussions and activities for the day instead of teaching them the old school method at their desks. So this right here, where it said the teacher is facilitating discussions, and while the children are active participants, this is a huge part of our curriculum, our kindergarten curriculum, and it is based off of him. So this is a huge foundation of our teaching, and it does meet the students of their needs. Now let's talk about the contributing factors to my students and maybe to some parts of our day. So they are low income, and this does come with some um, some negative things. Because of that, they have physical needs that are not being met. They come to school hungry, they are not bathed, they do not have the right clothes for the weather, they have been in clothes for many days, um, they have not had proper sleep schedules and eating schedules, and each day they're up at different times. And also they have social emotional needs. That also comes with nurture. Some of them have not been nurtured, loved for, cared for. They're kind of fended for themselves. And because of that, they contribute to development. They're a little bit behind where some other students are in the state of Illinois. They don't know how to write their name and open things, and they don't even know basic skills like they don't even know their name. Also, learning at school is really hard for them. They're very distracted. Um, it might be really hard for them to follow directions or to understand even why, because at home there's no reason to. And their day to day living, it's not just a 1 day thing, it's an ongoing thing, and it can have its challenges because, um, their week and months are never the same, and they all fluctuate. So it's hard for students to kind of combat that. So what our district has done is they've really tried to bridge the community and the parents with the schools. So we've created jobs like parents as teachers and parent mentors, so we can kind of understand the parents' needs and help them, without being um, so we can be aware and understanding without coming off sounding rude, if that makes sense. So these objectives have been the foundation of the whole instructional design plan and really have served as checkpoints. So my objectives for this is, as a result of the intervention, students will be able to use audio and video technology to progress monitor themselves, use audio and video technology to develop fluency, use audio and video technology to gain confidence and awareness social emotionally when it pertains to progress monitoring, and use audio and video technology to develop automaticity. So for the design, so currently in progress monitoring, we do this in two areas, phonics and math, and they're done about every 2 months, I would say, and they're done one-on-one. So the students come to my table one-on-one. I would show them letter or number cards, and I do this, and then the other students are working during center time or small group or purposeful play. This method of pulling students one at a time takes 6 to 8 hours of learning time a week. And this number only increases when it becomes close to report card time. During our report card and week and assessment windows, this could last 3 weeks. So that's about 24 hours, maybe even upwards towards 36 hours of, of instructional time being lost because of progress monitoring. Think about how much learning opportunities are being missed. Contact time is being taken away, and crucial intervention time during small groups. After teaching kindergarten for 6 years, I've been on a mission to find a better solution. This year, I wanted to use technology, that is what they're familiar with, specifically audio and video technology, to progress monitor themselves instead of the teacher. So kind of how I designed this is we have an app called the Seesaw Learning Platform. And that is something that our district has purchased a long time ago, and they're very familiar with that. So what I proposed is that they will use the Seesaw Learning app to use audio and video tools on that app to progress monitor themselves in our classroom. So how will I do this? So every 2 weeks, I will post a quick check on Seesaw. That will kind of show me what the students currently know in regards to phonics and number identification. They will then choose how they want to demonstrate their knowledge. It could be a video pointing to each item, a demonstration, or an audio recording. It's important to note that any time in the 2 week time frame when the students are confident, they will then assess themselves. So that's really key, when they're confident, not when Miss Wolf tells them that they're ready to do it. So looking at the results, it will be sent to me automatically, and I'll be able to see how long it took them to take the quick check, as well as their current knowledge. It'll be time stamped. I chose this proposed intervention tool for my students because they are comfortable with using video and audio technology on their iPads. because we use this method in other places of our day. And it's important to look at the accessibility of this. This intervention is something that all my students in my class can benefit from, and ideally, the other kindergarten classes at our school, and possibly our school district. Students in our district already have one-to-one technology, which uses the iPad. This will be accessible to all students, and they will be able to use it at their own time when they feel confident to share their knowledge. So there has been research on the effectiveness of using audio and video technology for progress monitoring. So Resource Ed said that cloud-based learning provides increased flexibility as pupils access and complete online assessments at a time that best suits their individual learning style and needs. So I think that's really key. Increased flexibility and at a time that suits their best needs and learning style. And what are the benefits of these? Well, it creates flexibility among the students. They're feeling they have a sense of ownership, and also the teachers. It's flexible for them any time in the day. It's familiar to them, and they can complete it at their own pace and comfortability. Maybe they are not ready at a certain time frame, but maybe the next day they feel really confident in that. I think that's important. And they can engage in other activities on their own. Miss Wolf doesn't need to be there, you know, sitting with them doing this. This is something that they can do on their own. It provides more time in our instructional day, and it boosts them social emotionally because they're confident, they're ready, and they love to share their knowledge. Resource Ed says that by assessing students in a manner appropriate to them, pupils are less likely to become frustrated and disengaged and more likely to succeed. So, after researching, my plan kind of falls into the cognitivism learning theory from Jean Piaget. And he created the learning of cognitive development. And this explains that children take an active role in the learning process, acting much like little scientists, and they perform experiments, make observations, and learn about the world. As kids interact with the world around them, they continually add new knowledge, build upon existing knowledge, and adapt previously held ideas to accommodate new information. Piaget. The cognitive learning theories describe this child and the world around them when development occurs through a constant process of going back and forth between the person and the environment. From Piaget, 1929. My intervention plan relates to this learning theory because essentially, progress monitoring allows the students to think about their thinking. Audio and video technology is an effective tool to use for this learning theory because it allows the students to analyze their personal learning and uses the strengths of the child to showcase their learning through these technology methods. Also, it kind of falls under the multimedia learning theory as well. And this was developed in 1997 by Richard Mayer. And this is actually a subcategory of cognitivism. And this basically is about that not only students are processing information like it, but they're also using multimedia to create visuals in their mind. So it's really about the visuals. This would be like job aids. Um, this would be like any virtual reality, um, demonstrations, videos. Um, this is all about that learning theory. And this also states that they learn better when they visualize and see things. So I chose to do my delivery in a hybrid method. And the students will not be in a distance learning at this time. They will be at my school, but hybrid within my classroom. So hybrid learning combines a traditional sense of the classroom with addition of multimedia tools that are online. And it provides students with better student engagement and variability for learners. And there's lots of benefits from this. There's a lot of flexibility for teachers. At any time in the day, they can do this. We get back instructional time, and they use technology tools that they're familiar with. Lumen Learning says that this gives students more agency over their learning, enables them to engage with course materials in the ways they learn best. So, this gives them a little bit of ownership of their learning. So, how did I develop this? So, basically, I thought that I did have to be very organized. I had to be thorough in making sure I was doing each process and each step. And I had to be flexible when doing this. So, I probably created a few plans before this final one. And, when you're doing a development plan and an instructional design plan, so this during this development stage, it's important to create a list and timelines to reference and check off along the way to make sure that you really did it. So to begin, I will first ensure that my students are capable of working independently on the Seesaw app and using the tools appropriately. This time will be taken through modeling and using job aids and videos to help the students to learn and navigate the tools. So this will take about place for first few weeks and months of the school year so that we can set the students up for success, comfortability, and confidence. So right when they come to school at the beginning of the school year, we will be modeling for the first few months just so that they're familiar with the tools when my instructional design plan starts into the end of the fall. During the first few months, I will create activities on Seesaw that the students will be selecting from in math and phonics. This will allow the students to play to their strengths as students and their preferred methods of communication. In order to have data to compare to, I will complete paper and pencil progress monitoring assessments for each student separately in math and phonics during the school day. I will have a stopwatch to track how much time is being spent per student and total on as well as the total of assessments during that day. This data will be a key piece of evidence for week 4 of the implementation, where I evaluate the two options. So, this paper pencil progress monitoring, the typical one that I do, this will be done the first 3 days of school when they begin and come to school in kindergarten. And then this data I will save and it will be used to compare to my instructional design plan. So, who are the people that need to be involved? Obviously, my kindergarten students, and here are some possible other people that could be included: my kindergarten curriculum coordinator, your technology coach, director of teaching and learning, and director of technology. I included these people because if this is something that really works, it would be beneficial for them to see. And this is also equipment too that will need to be attained and from where. So the one-to-one iPads, you can get them for each student or a group of 4 to 5 iPads for the whole class. If the district does not already have it, they'll have to get it from Apple. They'll also need the Seesaw Learning app, headphones for each student, which can be found on Amazon, and the stopwatch also on Amazon. And this is the likely cost of them. So our district already had all these things, but if they don't, iPads for each student is about $24,000, or if you get iPads for 4 to 5, they're about $5,000. The Seesaw Learning Platform license is $9.85 per student, and headphones for each student, for about 24 of them, is $375. So, how do I implement this? So, really, these timelines are going to be served as checkpoints to make sure that the assignments are purposefully implemented and to evaluate how long it's going and how it's going. Weekly milestones over the course of 4 weeks and will be completed in the middle of the school year. So, like I said, this will happen at the end of fall, and my timeline will serve as checkpoints. Keep that in mind because in kindergarten we don't do tests, so these are like checkpoints for them. And
The results, how am I going to implement the results? To evaluate and compare progress monitoring completed at the beginning of the year to the middle of the school year. So that's comparing my paper and pencil to the seesaw progress monitoring. So, to kind of give you how I'm going to implement this, I created a visual. So, as you can see in the first week, that's where they will be practicing the tools and formats of Seesaw, and I'll be doing tons of modeling. And then, as well as the weeks 2, 3, and possibly 4, that is where they will begin progress monitoring in whatever subject that they prefer. It could be math first, then phonics, and they can start wherever. Maybe they want to start in week 3, maybe in week 4, maybe week 2. It's really up to them. So that's why it's blocked out for those 3 weeks. And then at the end, in the last of week 4, the students will evaluate their progress monitoring tool, and also I will evaluate the data as well. So these are the steps of how I'm going to implement this. During the first week, there will be one activity in Seesaw that the students will work on. The activity will consist of students applying the tools they are familiar with in the app to progress monitoring and have them practice with peers, modeling from the teacher on how to use the assessments. We will also discuss what it means to be respectful of space while someone is taking a test. Social awareness. This will be key. And might be a struggle for a lot of them. So that is important to put in there. They can't go up to a friend when they're doing the test. They have to be sitting in a quiet spot. What does it look like when someone is taking a test? All those things. So that will, just like the visual said, that will happen the first week. Lots of practice. During the second, third, and possibly fourth week, the students will have a choice as to when they will complete their progress monitoring based upon their learning and when they're ready. Then they will select what area, math or reading, and the tool they will use to progress monitor themselves. This will take place for the next 2 to 3 weeks, and they will find a quiet spot in the hallway or classroom to do their assessment. And like I said, in week 4, that's where I will evaluate the data, and possibly makeups will happen if the students are sick. I will compare the results of the paper pencil test done at the beginning of the year to the technology-based progress monitoring to examine their understanding of the topics, make note of the time of teaching lost in both, evaluate their preferences, which one did they like better, and make a summary of both methods. This will allow me to see what worked and didn't, what areas I can improve for the next semester, and evaluate if this is something feasible for other teachers to do. So my instructional design plan kind of fell really close with the ADDIE model, and I kind of used that as a guiding point. So this is a instructional design model, and it stands for analysis, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. So it's important to note that throughout the design and completion of the plan, it really helped me think about my learners and help with my decision making. It allowed me to think about the objectives in the learners, the technology used to support them, the method of instruction, and the assessment tools, including formative and summative. This model is a process of design and implementation and assesses what should be learned and determines the adequacy of instruction. So first, I began to look at my learners, their unique backgrounds, the demographics, and their development, all which will impact my design and implementation. So that really was my analysis stage. From this knowledge, I thought about an area of my day that needed an intervention and what I could do to help improve it. So that was kind of my design. Here is where I designed my plan using technology to allow the students to progress monitor themselves. This is a student choice and frees up crucial instructional time. After I developed tools, assessment methods, and the activities. So that falls into the develop and implement stage. I really took the time to look at the objectives, my learners, and always kept reflecting back to the performance gap. This was my mission and guiding point through the whole process. So that always allowed me to reflect back. And lastly, I designed implementation strategies, assessment tools, and thought about what I might expect for my intervention plan. So at the end, it's important to evaluate. So throughout the whole process and especially at the end of it, it's important to ask ourselves, how can we improve for next time? What steps did we not consider? What did the data show? Was there significant positive change from the intervention? These are all the questions and more that I will be asking at this stage. So, who will be doing this? I, the teacher, will be the evaluator of the plan, but the data will also be shared with various people, such as the curriculum coordinator, principal, technology coach. This will be dependent on the data. So, if it went well, I can share it with them. But if I feel like we need to tweak it more and show more data throughout other semesters, then it will wait until I feel the intervention plan increased positive change and made significant growth. Throughout each stage, I will use checklists and it will be used before and the intervention plan. Before, I will use them to make sure I have everything ready. During, I will use them as checkpoints along the way to document time spent, what method they use to progress monitor, and if they're choosing when they're ready. And observational data will be used to gather information on the time, the student's progress, notes that I've taken, and anything else that is pertinent. This data will be used with a combination of everything else. I will create activities to show my students' understanding by progress monitoring themselves and will be used in this stage. This will be completed in Seesaw as stated earlier, and this will be used as another form of evidence and data. So for my formative assessment, this is really used during the course of the plan. So my formative assessments will take place every 2 weeks as listed in the weekly milestone diagram that I just showed. So those will be the formative assessments. They will be student choice, and I will give them 3 options to choose from: audio, video, or demonstration. Each time they assess themselves, they can choose um, to use the same method, or they could possibly change it, and think of these activities in Seesaw as quick checks. That's what they really are. That's what progress monitoring is: a short assessment tool to see how they're progressing. Checklists will be another form of formative assessment tool I will use to evaluate the objectives being met while observing the students taking data, for instance, like the time it took them, and evaluating their activities on Seesaw. For the summative assessment, I will use a mixture of interviews and data from the formative assessments to determine how the instructional design plan worked. Interviews will be used at the end of the intervention plan and will be given to 6 students, 2 of them performing at, 2 of them performing below grade level, and 2 performing higher than grade level. From these, I want to hear what they liked and didn't, what they thought could be done next time, and what they would they like to do them again, and how did it make them feel to be in control of their learning by making choices that pertain to themselves. My hope is the students will feel empowered and will have an impact on their learning in the class, as well as it'll have more time back in our day to instruct. Thank you so much for listening to my instructional design plan. It really meant a lot to me. My students mean more to me than you will ever know. Kindergarten is a very lively classroom, and it's just a blessing to work with them. So I hope you found it insightful in some way, that you learned something new, and maybe you learned a new perspective, something from this instructional design plan really stuck out to you as being a new perspective that you have on now, and maybe you learned something and it was very insightful. So thank you very much. Now I will show you the references on the next 3 slides.